that material nature and the living entity should be understood to be beginningless. They both are eternal. The transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. They're the three modes, and their permutation, combination, the result is all, they result in the complex material world. A easy example to understand this whole concept would be like a movie theater. Like an audience sits and watches a screen in which changes are happening. Changes are happening in the screen, but it affects the living entity. If it affects the audience. If it's a horror movie, the audience is going to be like fearful and going to, if there is romance happening, there is going to be some amount of happiness, or if there is some kind of tragedy scene, there is going to be some amount of tears and all the, or feelings of sorrow, sadness, like that. So all the changes are happening on the movie screen, but the audience who are watching experience the effect of that. Is that clear so far? You all agree with this? So the changes are not happening to the individual per se. It's happening on the screen. Similarly, the material nature is that screen, and the living entity is trying to engage with the material nature. And all the changes are happening in the material nature. And because of that, some changes happen in the living entity also. The feelings and desires, all those things come. But it is all because of the interaction with the screen. And what is the three modes of material nature? Three modes of material nature are like the basic colors. Say you take RGB. Those basic colors transform into all the pixels and the different scenes that we see on the screen. There may be a beautiful sunrise or a moon rise, or like a horror scene. There can be a tragedy scene. There can be a natural waterfall. Everything is a combination of those pixels of RGB, a different combination of that. So similarly, in this world, whatever we experience is a combination of sattva, rajas, and tamas. If there is too much tamas, then accordingly the effect will be there. If there is too much, there is sattva, then accordingly the person will be affected. So similarly, we are all just interacting with things made of the three modes, and because of our interaction with that, there will be transformation within the modes, within the material nature, and within us also. But all these transformations and the three modes are all part of the material nature. If you remember, Krishna also put the desires and the transformations as part of material nature when he was describing earlier in verse 7. Do you have the Gita to check the verse 7 that Krishna was explaining in 13th chapter? He says, so he put desire, hatred, happiness, distress, and all of this as part of the transformations within the field of activities. He put all of this as part of material nature. So because if you just reconsider that analogy of a movie screen, all the changes are happening in the movie screen, and there are some emotions that come because of seeing the movie. That is also temporary. Krishna puts those emotions also as part of material nature, because it is not original to the soul. It is the soul's identification with what's happening in the screen. That is the reason it is going through. The moment you switch off the screen, there is no more horror movie. There is no more fear. So when the living entity stops identifying with the material nature and starts understanding its original position and relation to the super soul, naturally all those unnecessary lamentation, fear, and illusion, all of that will disappear. It's like the dream. So that is the understanding of this verse, that material nature and the living entities both are eternal, but their transformations and the modes of nature are products of the material nature because of the interaction. Is this clear? Any doubts? This is the best I could think of explaining this verse.
So that means actually the kshetra is actually part of material nature only then, or
Yes.
byproduct of material nature.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Because kshetra is our body, right?
Yeah.
So that is literally when we die, the body is left behind.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I personally really appreciated this. I can totally understand what you're saying. Thank you.
All thanks to Chet. I did defer to one of his lectures, and I really like the analogy of the movie screen. It was very apt in my opinion. Okay. So if this is clear, then we can move on to the next verse. This is a line from Prabhupada, but all transformations and variety in respect to living entities are due to the body. As far as spirit is concerned, living entities are all the same. The living entity could be in a plant body, in an animal body, in an amoeba body, or in a human body, male body, female body, any kinds. But all that difference is all the transformations and the variety. Like somebody is young, somebody is old, somebody has a brown hair, blue eyes, all these kind of things. All these varieties and the transformations is all due to the body. As far as spirit is concerned, living entities are all the same. So this is one of the lines that I picked up from Prabhupada's purport to this verse 20. And as far as 21 is concerned, nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. A classic verse to hurt anyone's ego. The nature is the cause of all material causes and effects. Like the body, it's growing. We may be eating, not eating, but still the transformation is a material transformation because we have to give some food. That food is also matter. And the transformation also is affected by the material nature. The time is moving. So nature is ultimately the cause of all the material causes and effects. Birth, old age, death, disease, transformation of the body, all those causes and effects. Of course, the soul is there. However, is all affected by the material nature. But who is going to enjoy or suffer? It's the living entity, because matter is inherently unconscious. Prakriti is by nature unconscious. Purusha is by nature conscious. That is the main differentiation between these two categories, Purusha and Prakriti. So though Prakriti is the cause of all cause and effect, the living entity is the one who is going to suffer and enjoy in this world. So who's responsible for the suffering and enjoyment? Not the material nature.
Professor, like you made an important point. You say it is unconscious, but then how come it become cause and effect? It can't be a cause with being unconscious.
So that is why we are the cause for suffering and enjoyment, because the matter itself will not turn into iPhone. I make an iPhone, then I deal with digital addiction. However, ultimately, if the matter did not have the ability to be transformed, then we won't be able to.
No, if something is changing, like here it's mentioned, the transformation is happening, right? That means there is nothing conscious in it. So
I mean, I pour water. Water is not conscious.
Yeah. Okay.
So matter is malleable. There is some, say, for example, if I put water in a smaller glass, it takes a certain shape. When I put it in a bigger glass, it takes a certain shape. So there is some amount of change in that happening. That's because it's not because it has consciousness, because my interacting with it and my desires, I want it this way or I want it that way.
Oh, actually, these changes are also, the Prakriti is changing because of Krishna put some energy into it. That's why it's changing.
But it's not conscious. The conscious is different.
Okay. Got it.
Energy is there, but it is not a conscious energy.
Okay. The energy is there. Okay. Yeah, it's difficult to make that.
See, the difference between consciousness is like
consciousness, feeling, right?
Is the feeling and emotions and desires. It does not have a desire of its own to transform into a certain form.
Okay, but the energy is there. That's the reason it's transforming into. Okay.
Yeah. So that is why we become responsible.
Okay.
Because it does not have a free will to take any transformation. Yes, Madharendra?
So when you talk about water, but you're not talking about, are you talking about the ocean? Like the ocean? Not having a consciousness, but having energy.
Means I'm talking about matter in general. It could be earth, water, air, fire, ether. On a certain level, these are matter and they don't have consciousness. These are the 5 elements that primarily makes up the matter, Pancha Mahabhuta, and they don't have consciousness. That's the difference between the living entity and the matter, right?
Yes, I'm thinking too much into this. Yes, I get
it. Okay. So the living entity is the cause of various sufferings and enjoyments in the world, because the soul desires, and that is the cause of some of these transformations, and they become responsible for that. So the soul desires determine the play. It just nature provides the field. So suffering is not caused by God or fate, but by our misuse of independence. So this verse is usually quoted to help reconcile divine justice with human suffering, because we have an option not to suffer. Because of our identification with the material nature, then we suffer. This example is given once. A king is visited by a sage, and the sage is received well, and then the king asks him, how do I get relieved from material nature, Maya? How do I get released from this influence of the Maya? And the sage says, okay, come with me, follow me. And the sage starts running. So the king is also running behind the sage. And the sage runs for a while, and everybody is wondering what happened, that the king is running behind a sage and the sage is running in the front. So what's going on? So the sage runs for a while and then goes to a distant place and then hugs a tree. and then keeps yelling, saying, Tree, please leave me, tree, please leave me. So the king comes and says, like, the tree, you are holding the tree. Why would the tree give you release? You are the one who's holding the tree. He said, the same way you are holding Maya. Maya is not holding you. You can, if you desire, you can this moment completely give up Maya. Maya is not holding you. It is you who are holding to Maya because of your attachment. And then you are saying, how can I get released from Maya? No, it is you who have to actually give up your hold of Maya. So basically, his way of saying that we are the ones who are attached to Maya. Maya is not attached to us. If we want release, then that is possible. So without our desire, there will be never a release from the material nature. We are the ones who has to initiate that release from material nature, not the other way. Maya can give enough suffering to make us realize, but ultimately it is who we have to desire to be released from the material nature. It is our hands which is holding the tree, not the other way around.
So this Maya element, right? Is it a separate element of the? No, it's part of material nature, or like it's a separate from material nature.
So how
So-
Krishna explains Maya in the Bhagavad? He says, what is Maya? Is the living entity's vision to see anything separate from me is called as Maya.
Okay.
If I see this laptop and I don't understand its connection with Krishna, and I see it separately as an object of my enjoyment, that moment there is Maya. But if a devotee with full awareness looks at it and thinks this can be used in Krishna's service, then for them there is no Maya. To the level there is Krishna consciousness. Where there is Krishna, there is no Maya. So in terms of the consciousness, in terms of the consciousness, lack of Krishna consciousness is Maya.
So that means Maya is actually using the Prakriti to bind us. That's a correct understanding.
Yes, we are bewildered because we are seeing everything separate from Krishna.
So one more thing, sorry, I'm going a little bit more into this. So even if you see like the fire, whatever the matter is there, right? In all the, even in the tiny elements also Krishna is present there. That means actually Krishna is present there. That means there should be consciousness in that. It's like maybe fire itself doesn't have consciousness, but it by being Krishna present in it everywhere. That's how even like when Sita, because of that, if there is no consciousness, fire would not have protected Sita.
I think
I'm going.
we are stretching it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there it's pastime.
Yeah.
And she is like a different energy. And her interaction, we cannot like use it for any of these understandings. As such, what is consciousness? The ability to experience.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So can water or a fire in itself, can it experience on its own?
Yeah, as an element, it can't experience its
That's
own.
what I'm saying. That's
correct.
what we are saying.
Yeah.
There is also demigods who are personifying those personalities, those elements. That is very different subject matter.
Got it.
But the matter itself, as individual elements, they are unconscious.
Okay. But by being Krishna present in every way, he can protect from that.
He is
matter.
not giving consciousness to matter by his presence.
Okay.
And so he is there in every anu, but does not mean the anu becomes conscious because of his presence. If he is not there, it will not even exist. For the very existence, he needs to pervade everything. It is his energy that actually upkeeps even matter.
Okay.
However, it does not mean it's conscious.
Okay. Makes sense.
That is the difference between material nature and the spiritual nature. In spiritual nature, we say even a rasgulla is conscious there.
Yeah.
Because it is chinta, it is chidanandamaya. There is consciousness in everything.
Okay. So that means like whoever is looking, who are like more spiritual nature, they can see Krishna in every.
Means if somebody is fully Krishna conscious, what is the symptom of a Mahabhag? Wherever he sees, he does not see the matter itself. He sees there Krishna's presence or connection with Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhupada.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. So with the next verse, so this is from Prabhupada's purport, like according to one's desires and activities, material nature places one in various residential quarters. The being himself is the cause of his attaining such residential quarters and his attendant enjoyment or suffering. Whatever kind of body we are currently existing in. So there is nobody else who is cause for that, who is the reason for that. I cannot say, oh, why Krishna gave me birth in such and such country, such and such family, such and such body. It's we have this, the being himself or herself is the cause of attaining such residential quarters and the subsequent enjoyment or suffering due to that body. So the residential quarters here refers to body for the living entity. So it's the desires and activities both. A combination of one's desires and activities in the past and the credits leads us to a particular kind of body that we are possessing currently in this life. So the next verse is, the living entity in the material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of material nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. So, this is a very famous verse, memorizing verse usually for Bhakti also. Because of the living entity's interaction with the material nature and enjoying the three modes of guna, due to their association, it meets with good or evil among different species. So the soul travels through different bodies because of its association with the three modes. So every association brings a consequence. Attachments determine our rebirth. And here association is the key influencer. Either is the association with the three modes or association with satsanga is a higher spiritual nature. Accordingly, one gets influenced. Just as we change schools or jobs based on qualification, the soul gets a new body accordingly, based on its qualification. So hope that makes sense.
One more thing here, the soul
Yes.
is called a living entity because it has the material mind. I mean to say, the mind is polluted with the material things. That's why it's called living entity. When it is a living entity, and both living entity and soul can be referred alternatively.
They both are same, I would say. There is
Okay,
not
okay.
much of a difference.
Okay.
Okay.
But when you say soul, that means it should be a pure soul, right? No, or it can be, the soul can be alternatively called like.
Soul
it
is
is
always pure. It is sometimes covered, sometimes not covered.
Okay, when it is covered. Okay, got it.
But here there is no differentiation in the terminologies of because of that. In general, the soul here they are referring to is covered because it's already in the material nature.
Okay,
They are
okay.
speaking about a covered soul.
Covered the soul. Okay, got it.
So in the purport Prabhupada, one has to rise therefore above the three modes of material nature. That covering is the three modes, and become situated in the transcendental position that is called Krishna consciousness. So the whole purpose of bhakti practice is to actually realize our connection with Krishna. For that, the byproduct is also that we will be rising above the three modes naturally by the process of bhakti. So yet in this body, there is another transcendental enjoyer. So now Krishna has so far spoke about the Prakriti and Purusha as the individual soul. So now he is differentiating that there is also another Purusha. So this Purusha is the Paramatma, not the living entity. Yet in this body, there is another transcendental enjoyer who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer, permitter, and who is known as the super soul. Oh, I'm confusing a couple of verses. Yet in this body, there is another transcendental enjoyer. He is beyond the three modes, and he is called as the super soul. So beyond the soul, or along with the soul, apart from the soul, is the Paramatma, the supreme enjoyer, who is a witness, permitter, and oversees this. All these engagements with the material nature and the living entity is being witnessed by. So we all have a personal CCTV camera who records everything, the desires that we have, the thoughts we have, what we do, deeds. Everything is recorded by the Paramatma, and accordingly, he will grant our desires. So Krishna is not entangled because he is just the observer and approver. If we have the quality, say for example, if I want to go to Whole Foods, if I look at a thing and think, okay, can I just do some shoplifting here? If I suddenly get a desire, oh, can I just sneak in this? And I have to, if I get caught, I'll be responsible for that. So what Krishna is doing there is he just observes my desire and he does not come in my way between, because if I have the right to do that, he's not going to stop me. So he just observes and approves that my hands can hide and I can use my intelligence. But according to the interactions, whatever unfolds later is due to my own use of my free will. If I get caught, then I cannot say Krishna allowed me to do this, so he is not responsible. A classic controversial example could be the government manufactures gun and sells gun, but you cannot hold the government responsible for taking a gun and shooting someone. So it is manufactured for a purpose and it is given for a certain purpose. But if someone chooses to misuse, then that person is responsible for that. So the super soul is observing and also grants. If we have the karma to engage in it, we will be allowed to. If can I overeat my breakfast? Yeah, there is breakfast outside and I can just eat one ball or I can eat 4 balls and I feel bloated and I can feel like the effects of my overeating. So Krishna has already approved that It is my free will to choose how much I want to eat. So though he resides in all bodies, he remains unaffected because he is not engaging in anything. He's just observing. So this verse clarifies the distinction between the soul and the super soul. Because people may think, some may try to bend and twist this verse to say, oh, this verse is speaking about the soul. No, it is very clear. He is the overseer, he is the permitter, he is not the same soul that is being explained in the previous verse. That is why the word cha is used in the Sanskrit. That soul is not Maheshwara. If the soul was Maheshwara, then he will not be influenced by the Prakriti and he will not go through lower species and higher species. If you read the verse 22, it says because of the soul's interaction with the material nature, sometimes it takes birth in higher species, sometimes in lower species. So why that would happen if that soul was a Maheshwara, is the Supreme Lord? Because this verse is speaking about the super soul who is Bharta Maheshwara. I hope this clarifies. Is it getting too hard? Okay.
No, very clear.
Okay. That's nice. So this Prabhupada is writing here in the purport saying the individual soul enjoys the activities of a particular field, but the super soul is present not as a finite enjoyer, nor as one taking part in bodily activities, just as the witness, overseer, permitter, and supreme enjoyer. So that's why he is not entangled in any of the activities that we do. So last but one verse, and it's also closer to 10. One who understands this philosophy concerning the material nature, the soul, the living entity, and the interactions of the material modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. If someone really understands this philosophy and lives by it, if they start understanding the difference between what is Prakriti, what is Purusha, and what is the interaction, and the more and more one is aware, so then they'll become gradually, they will release themselves, or they will release their holding to that tree of Maya. Their hold on Maya, they'll gradually release. Basically, I have the remote to controls, switch off my TV screen. Then I'll not be affected by the influences that is happening in the screen. So similarly, we have that remote. That remote can be by turning to super soul. So realizing the difference between the soul, nature, and the super soul leads to liberation. So this is the Sankhya framework applied to bhakti. So know the three, the soul, the super soul, the nature. And then by knowing this, you can transcend the duality. So Arjuna is thinking liberation is just going to forest, renunciation. But Krishna is saying no. Liberation is by proper understanding and application, not just by external renunciation. So liberation is not in a location that you go to forest, you get liberation. No, liberation is not dependent on the location one lives. It's about the realization one has of what is soul, what is nature, what is super soul, how they are different, what is their interaction, how the soul gets entangled, how it can be disentangled. By knowing this and by applying it and by realizing it, one gets liberation. It's not just by going to forest or taking to renunciation, one becomes liberated. So that is a false conception Arjuna is having, which Krishna is dismantling.
One last question here. So,
yes, Sundara. Yes, bro.
So, like, how much this solitude is important actually in the spiritual life? Because sometimes, if you see, like, even great, if you see in examples in also, like, most of the time, like, they go to solitude and practice the bhakti also. So, even after knowing all these things, so maybe if any other people has questions, you can take, but you can answer.
So you are asking, I see bhakti yogis also going to forest and practicing. So what is wrong in going to forest? So here in the Bhagavad Gita, going to forest is being equated by Arjuna as Jnana Yoga. That is why. Okay. He is assuming going to forest means becoming a yogi. That is why that is the kind of equation we are making, synonym we are using. But in general, in the past, even all kinds of yogis retired to the forest. But specifically, Jnana yogis, that is the first step you do. Okay. Even in Bhakti Yoga also, is it important, like considering the Kali that we are in? No, it is not important. Prabhupada again says it's not important for Bhakti Yoga. Even the taking of sannyas or renounced ashram is not necessary for sure for the Bhakti anywhere. That's why again Chaitanya Prabhu speaks about these things and he establishes those principles through various pastimes. He himself goes and hears from Ramananda. Though he is sannyasi, he is supposed to be the guru of the society. He hears from Ramananda, who comes from a lower family. He initiates, he makes Haridas Thakur as the So he breaks all those barriers. That bhakti does not have those social conventions. But for the sake of practicing, varnashram is required for the sake of the elevation of the society. But bhakti is not dependent on that. Bhakti Maryada is up higher than Varna Maryada, Maryada.
Got it. Thanks.
Sundara.
This 23 and 24, these two verses, what they're showing. So this whole process of approaching someone and truly understanding the whole equation of the material nature, it seems there is no way until you come in contact with some pure devotees who can explain bhakti, right? As Prabhupada explains in the purport of 24, he has to understand by coming in contact with some advanced authorities. If that's a prerequisite, that means that the 90% of the people are going to be stuck in that cycle forever, right? Because it's very rare to come across elevated souls, at least in this world, like we see in Kali Yuga. Most people are totally inside this web. How will they ever come?
Brahmite means after millions of lifetimes going around the universe, we have got this opportunity. So it is for sure rare. And that is why, again, outreach is considered merciful, because we are trying to introduce as many people as possible by association. If they can actually transform their lives, that will be for their good and for our good.
Okay. Thank you.
So this is from the purport of Prabhupada's purport to the verse 24. Clear understanding of material nature, the super soul, the individual soul, and their interrelation makes one eligible to become liberated and turn to the spiritual atmosphere without being forced to return to this material nature. This is the result of knowledge. So basically, understanding this and living by it makes one eligible to become liberated. And the last but one verse, verse 25. Some perceive the super soul within themselves through meditation, others through cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruit of desires. Basically, different seekers, maybe they are dhyana yogis, jnana yogis, can perceive the super soul gradually through their own practice, even a karma yogi. So Krishna acknowledges that multiple paths, but sets the stage for bhakti as the ultimate. We will see that in the next verse. That each of these paths still depend on the surrender to the super soul. Ultimately, they have to perceive that Hari Prabhu had earlier asked. They have to come to the level of perceiving the super soul in order for them to actually get liberation, get released. It could be any path, but ultimately they have to acknowledge the difference between the soul and the super soul and the superiority of the super soul. Bhakti does not cancel other paths, it completes them. What is that? That surrender to super soul is bhakti, right? So it does not cancel other paths, it rather completes, helps them complete. So but Thakur writes, without a tinge of bhakti, none of these yogas can actually offer liberation, because yoga means what? Yoga means connection of the soul with the super soul. So there needs to be at least a tinge of connection. Otherwise, there is no yoga. That is why then it becomes karma jnana. It's not karma yoga and it's not jnana yoga. So again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. This is a reference to bhakti. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. Some may not be a karma yogi, some may not be as jnana yogi, go to forest and do this meditation, engage in Ashtanga yoga. Krishna says, no need. As long as they can actually have the tendency to hear from authorities and follow what they hear, they can also transcend this path. So even those who begin simply by hearing about the Lord can transcend birth and death. They may not know about all these technicalities. The moment they begin to hear about the Supreme Lord and his activities, gradually the cleansing can happen and they will come to understand that they are different from the body, that detachment will naturally come. Knowledge and renunciation is part of the bhakti. So Shravanam is so potent that it elevates even those lacking academic knowledge. So devotional hearing purifies the consciousness. So hearing about Krishna connects us to divine grace even before full comprehension. We all have that experience. It's not that we understood all the philosophy first and then became devotees, started chanting Hare Krishna. Some people may come through that way also. But for most of us, we didn't know much what we are getting into. We heard, ate some prasad, danced in some kirtan, did some chanting, and we heard some lectures, even though it did not make full sense. We don't know what they are saying, but still, it gave us a good feeling. We sat there, we felt like fresh, it felt something exhilarating because there was some Krishna connection happening. With over years, we are still trying to understand what is this philosophy after years. So, however, we have experience of Krishna already. That is for sure is there. You may not, if someone asks, have you seen Krishna? It may not be clear. But you and me has surely experienced Krishna's hands in our life. That much is there when we visited them. There is a experience. There may not be a complete revelation fully in our hearts, but surely there is an experience of Krishna we all have had. in our own ways, even though the knowledge is not fully yet comprehended. So that's why Krishna is saying hearing about Krishna connects us to divine grace even before full comprehension of the knowledge itself. Hope this makes sense. Any doubts?
Yes, Prabhu. Oh, sorry. Can I go?
Yes.
I had put it in the chat box. My internet is not very good today. At the end of verse 25, in the purport it says childish activities. What does it mean by that? Because earlier Prabhupada talks about the Hatha Yoga system, but that is not the, I don't know, that is qualified as a childish activity.
Yes, that's what.
But it is indeed difficult.
And who try to satisfy Supreme Personality of Godhead by childish activities. Means basically karma, jnana and yoga, he's just calling us childish activities.
But even to transcend those, to become like a really good yogi, even a Hatha yogi, is so difficult. It's not.
But it's difficult. But why take all that trouble when you can easily simply hear about Krishna and transform yourself? Just because it is difficult, that not means it is not superior. Yeah, but if I touch like this, so difficult, so this is greater. There is nothing like that, right? Just because something is difficult does not mean it is the best. We have this idea. If there is something costlier, then it is superior. If there is something which is complicated, that must be intellectual, then it is greater. We have that opinion. That's what Krishna is trying to break. It's not necessary. Bhakti is simple. It's not easy. Bhakti is simple. That does not mean it's lower than jnana because it is so complicated. It's a psychophysical nature. If someone has a complicated intelligence and they want to feel like a scholar, that's fine. But that does not mean, that's why the whole verse is there, right? What is Dhruva's age? What is Vidura's caste? What is Gajan's species? They all got liberated. They all got mercy of Krishna. What is Pralasana? So it does not matter.
Okay, I get
But
it.
Krishna is simply satisfied by the devotion. That's why Prabhupada is saying these are all childish activities. Whether you bend your body, how much, it does not matter.
Okay, I get it now. Thank you.
So as far as the common man, if he is a good soul, then there is a chance of advancement by hearing. This hearing process is very important. Lord Chaitanya, who preached Krishna consciousness in the modern world, gives great stress to hearing, because if the common man simply hears from authoritative sources, he can progress, especially according to Lord Chaitanya. If he hears the transcendental vibration, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare, that's all is the qualification. We are all the proofs. We are no sages sitting in a forest. We are not like all the time great intellectuals who know the philosophy of Sankhya. And some of us may not be even so much interested in philosophy. All our qualification is because we chanted Hare Krishna mantra. And now we are here trying to understand what Krishna is explaining to Arjuna. So it's not the other way. Because we understood everything, so we started chanting Hare Krishna. We had some faith. If as far as the common man, if he's a good soul, there is a chance for advancement by hearing. Because we heard Prabhupada and we followed what he said, that is our only qualification. Thank you.
But then, Prabhuji, try to understand the Gita, anything else. We can just chant and then that's it, no? Then why?
If you had that level of faith, can you continue your process of chanting without these auxiliary hearing and support? Do you have that faith? Will your chanting will never be stopped and your quality of chanting will continue to increase in quantity and quality without having any other support? That's fine. So these are all supportive for our chanting, not alternative for our chanting. This is to make us continue to convince that, oh, the chanting that I'm doing is the best thing. So to continue that faith. Otherwise, we'll become weak and we'll give up the chanting itself.
And then, if you think about all the saints in India who were like in the past, they barely had any literacy levels, barely had read any.
But their faith level.
Their faith rise to that level then.
Because
if they had not read anything.
See, knowledge is not external all the time. When you chant and when you perform bhakti, knowledge that is required to transcend this material world will naturally come. What is that thing? That detachment from matter is knowledge.
Yes. But
that
now
detachment that this is temporary and my Lord is the ultimate, that is the ultimate epitome of knowledge. For that one, we need not have PhDs and we need not have masters, MS in US. No, not required. The knowledge that they are speaking about is detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna. That is the real sign of knowledge.
Okay.
Even if you don't understand everything, Krishna himself is saying, he says, even if my devotee does not understand everything, if he has devotion, I will give the knowledge necessary to achieve me. That is detachment from matter. So he will show him that how matter is, the attachment to matter causes pain and suffering. And because of that, the devotee will become detached from matter and anything temporary. And why will he not be happy to read about Krishna's words and his devotees' pastimes? It's not that they will say, no, don't speak to me, Bhagavad Gita, if you speak to them. They may be attached to hearing because they're already hearing what Krishna and in the mantra. They're having association with Krishna through their chanting. On that level, even if you say, if you stop them and they will not say, oh no, Gita is, I won't hear. No. The other was explaining that how this illiterate Brahmana in South India is sitting and shedding tears, holding Gita in his hands, because all that he can imagine is that great Lord is becoming a servant of his devotee.
Yes. Okay.
So will come as part of bhakti, are byproducts of bhakti. Because our bhakti is weak, then we are also giving support through this knowledge to strengthen our conviction and faith that this chanting is the best thing that I have got, that it is a very rare thing, that I have been given this opportunity to chant Hare Krishna, which is rarest of the rare things. So now I need to take it seriously to understand that we are doing all these studies, because we tend to forget it. We think, this chanting every day, it's okay one day. So in order to understand that seriousness, we are being reminded again and again through these philosophy and discussions. And we also don't have the taste to chant 24 hours. Scrolling the screen we can do for 4 hours. You say ask someone to chant for 4 hours. No, it's like too hard. No, this works, this does not. So that's why we don't have that natural attraction. If we had, then we'll not be having any trouble. I think makes sense. And just to complete this section, I need to go any moment, that we are conditioned by the material nature, but we are not condemned. That it's not that eternally we are lost. If we use our free will, we can break through this conditioning. So though the soul is bound by the association with the modes, liberation is always possible. It is within our desire. If we choose and if we act on it, we are not eternally condemned. We are conditioned, but we can gain release. And that freedom comes from true knowledge. True knowledge means it's not just in my books, in my notes, in my Apple notes, in my Microsoft Google notes. No, it's in my heart also, that I apply it in my life. So that can actually bring freedom. When I apply that knowledge and make it into personal realization, then that can bring freedom. So that is why we are conditioned, but we are not eternally condemned. How can I deepen my understanding of the difference between spirit and matter in daily life? Because a lot of our attractions are this confusion. Because I don't see myself separate from my identification. I identify with my body, I identify with my mind. Immediately I look at something, oh, this will give me happiness, this will give me distress. So this whole attachment identification thing is driving the whole desire, and everything is, the whole life is just this game of identification. So the more I identify, that is why in deity worship, the first thing you do is, now this is called cleansing the mind, cleansing the identification that I am not this, I am not that, I am just a servant of Krishna, I am here to just serve Krishna. So that reorientation is what is called a sadhana, daily sadhana. Otherwise, there is so much identification with our body, with our mind constantly.